Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the President and the First Lady, it is an honor to welcome all of you to the White House for this very important occasion. I wish to begin and on behalf of the President acknowledge the distinguished guests, beginning with the 5 survivors who will be named individually by the President and the families of other survivors who are represented here with us today. And one of them will be, one of the survivors, Mr. Shaw, will be introduced by Dr. Satcher in a moment, and he will present the President. I wish to acknowledge the many members of Congress who are present. Senator John Glenn, the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, the congressman representing the district from which most of these individuals traveled, Congressman Earl Hilliard, and Congressman Louis Stokes, who figured prominently in the effort to address this injustice, and some 35 other members of the Congressional Black Caucus, all of whom worked together tirelessly to make certain that the people of the United States of America were made fully aware of the need for the step the President is taking today. Members of the Cabinet, Transportation Secretary Rodney Slater and Labor Secretary Alexis Herman. Other distinguished guests, I can't mention all by name, but there are the heads of a great many prominent African American organizations in the United States of America, the heads of many organizations formed to battle against the threat of AIDS, organizations that have also been prominent in this effort. Individuals such as Dr. Henry Foster, Dr. Benjamin Payton, president of Tuskegee University, and dozens of other extremely distinguished prominent guests, too many to acknowledge individually. 6 decades ago, indifference and injustice combined to begin to write one of the most shameful chapters in the history of American medicine. Of course, the infamous project called the Tuskegee Study of Untreated Syphilis in the Negro Male. In 1932, America's Public Health Service set out to study syphilis, but it pursued this worthy goal in a manner that was irredeemably cruel. Several hundred African American men the Public Health Service recruited at churches and clinics and farms were used in the study. Most of these men had syphilis. None of them knew their bodies harbored this disease. And then the Public Health Service followed the men's lives, watched how the disease developed, all the while withholding medicine, withholding treatment of any kind for these innocent American citizens. Medical professionals willingly, intentionally let human beings suffer from a treatable and then later a curable illness. These researchers knew that mercury and arsenic compounds could treat the disease, but the Tuskegee men did not receive the medicine. Later, the researchers knew that penicillin could cure the disease, but again, the Tuskegee men did not get the medicine. They didn't get treated until the 40-year study was discovered and stopped amid public outcry in 1972. It was a disgraceful episode for American science. We feel the repercussions still, tremors of distrust that have not yet disappeared. To this day, the Tuskegee study makes some Americans think twice about donating blood or taking their children for vaccinations or signing an organ donor card. But out of this sad incident, we can learn and we can find healing. And we can vow that such hideous episodes will never occur again. The relentless pursuit of scientific truth is a noble endeavor, but not so noble that it exempts us from our deeper obligations to be moral and just, to revere the sanctity of the lives of our fellow men and women. The ultimate purpose of science is to improve human lives. Science and technology can be powerful forces for good, and usually are. They've cured diseases, built economies, helped to narrow the distance of time and space. In the 21st century, as the march of new discoveries picks up even more speed, we must be vigilant about making certain science and technology always remain positive forces in American life. So today, the nation, under President Clinton's leadership and at his initiative, finally does the right and the honorable thing. It is now my pleasure to introduce and bring to the microphone one of the people who has led this effort that has brought us here today, the distinguished director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Dr. David Satcher.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Mr. President, I'm honored to be here today with you and all of our distinguished guests. As I begin my remarks, I'd like to make a few acknowledgments. First of all, I'd like to recognize the Acting Surgeon General, Dr. Audrey Manley, who is participating in the ceremony via satellite from Tuskegee, Alabama, along with several of the study participants and their families who are unable to attend the ceremony in Washington, D.C. So our satellite downlink is working. I want to especially thank the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Donna Shalala, who is giving a commencement address and could not be with us today. But her leadership has allowed us to raise the standards of human research. And finally, I would like to thank President Clinton for his courage, his commitment, and vision in bringing us together so that we can make a new beginning. We see it as an opportunity to start again, sensitized by the lessons we have learned from past mistakes and continuing to enhance our mission to protect the public's health. Today is an historic event. As our President acknowledges the tragedy of the U.S. Public Health Service syphilis study in Tuskegee and apologizes on behalf of the government for decisions made many years ago that still haunt us, we open a new chapter in public health. The U.S. Public Health study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male was wrong for many reasons. The study participants were never informed about the purpose of the study, never asked to give their informed consent to participate in the study, and were intentionally misled about receiving treatment. But by publicly admitting our mistakes and acknowledging the role of the Public Health Service in this study, we have an opportunity for a new beginning. The future will also bring new ethical challenges. We must be prepared to meet them and to meet them together. As a nation, we must ensure that anyone who conducts human research receives comprehensive bioethics training and understands and incorporates the principles of bioethics in their work, and that local communities where research is conducted are treated as full partners as we strive to uphold the highest ethical principles. But if history has taught us anything, it is that these principles are meaningless if we don't apply them fairly and equally across all lines of race, religion, gender, and ethnicity. The race for scientific discovery is important, but must never overshadow our commitment to human dignity. We must hold ourselves to the highest ethical standards, never stop monitoring our progress, and always be open to public scrutiny and willing to admit our mistakes. As Secretary Shalala said this morning in her commencement address at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine, we must ensure that our ethics are always as sophisticated as our science. So to the survivors and their spouses and family members who are watching from Tuskegee, Alabama, and those who are here with us in Washington, D.C., we want to thank you for your willingness to participate in today's ceremony. You are allowing us to come together, and you're giving us this opportunity to chart a new beginning. It would have been easy for you to take a cynical attitude towards this event. Instead, by being here today, you express hope for the future, the kind of hope which we need to transmit to our children. Now I'd like to introduce the next speaker, a very special person, Mr. Herman Shaw, one of our honored guests and a participant in the Tuskegee syphilis study. Mr. Shaw was an original participant in the study, and he participated for 40 years. He was married to Fannie Mae Greathouse for 62 years. They have 2 children, both college graduates. He has 6 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild. And he told me last night that for the last 52 years he has been driving his tractor, and he already has his garden in place for this year. Welcome, Mr. Herman Shaw.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. On behalf of all the survivors who have today and those who could not attend, and on behalf of their heirs, my fellow participants who have died, I wish to thank Mr. President Clinton. Thank you very much for inviting us to the White House. It has been over 65 years since we entered the program. We are delighted today to close this very tragic and painful chapter in our lives. We were treated unfairly, to some extent, like guinea pigs. We were not pigs. We were not dancing boys as we were projected in the movie on Miss Evers' Boys. We were all hard-working men and not boys, and citizens of the United States. The wounds that were inflicted upon us cannot be undone. I'm saddened today to think of those who did not survive and whose families will forever live with the knowledge that their death and suffering was preventable. Mr. President, we too also want to thank our lawyer, Attorney Fred Gray, who has been with us during these 25 years and helped us to make this ceremony is important, has become the damage done by the Tuskegee study is much deeper than the wounds any of us may have suffered. It speaks to our faith in government and the ability of medical science to serve as a force for good. As I said at the press conference in Shiloh Baptist Church in Tuskegee, Alabama, on April the 8th, in addition to the apology, we want to construct a Tuskegee permanent memorial, a place where our children, grandchildren, will be able to see the contribution that we and others made to this country. I'm glad that I have help from the Tuskegee Human Rights Multiple Center, which will be for the purpose of creating such a lasting memorial. In my opinion, it is never too late to work to restore faith and trust. So a quarter of a century after the study ended, President Clinton, decision gathered us here to allow us to finally put this horrible nightmare behind us as a nation, a most welcome decision. In order for America to reach its full potential, we must truly be one America, black, red, white together, trusting each other, caring for each other, and never allowing the kind of tragedy which has happened to us in Tuskegee study to ever happen again. Mr. President, words cannot express my gratitude to you for bringing us here today, for doing so, doing your best to right this wrong tragedy, and to resolve the American should never again allow such an event to occur again. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the President of the United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, on Sunday, Mr. Shaw will celebrate his 95th birthday. I would like to recognize the other survivors who are here today and their families. Mr. Charlie Pollard is here. Mr. Carter Howard. Mr. Fred Simmons. Mr. Simmons just took his first airplane ride. He reckons he's about 110 years old, so I think it's time for him to take a chance or two. I'm glad he did. And Mr. Frederick Moss, thank you, sir. Thank you, all of you. I would also like to ask three family representatives who are here. Sam Donor is represented by his daughter, Gwendolyn Cox. Thank you, Gwendolyn. Ernest Hendon, who is watching in Tuskegee, is represented by his brother, North Hendon. Thank you, sir, for being here. And George Key is represented by his grandson, Christopher Monroe. Thank you, Chris. I also acknowledge the families, community leaders, teachers, and students watching today by satellite from Tuskegee. The White House is the people's house. We are glad to have all of you here today. I thank Dr. David Satcher for his role in this. I thank Congresswoman Waters and Congressman Hilliard, Congressman Stokes, the entire Congressional Black Caucus, Dr. Satcher, members of the Cabinet who are here, Secretary Herman, Secretary Slater, a great friend of freedom, Fred Gray, thank you for fighting this long battle all these long years. The 8 men who are survivors of the syphilis study at Tuskegee are a living link to a time not so very long ago that many Americans would prefer not to remember. But we dare not forget. It was a time when our nation failed to live up to its ideals, when our nation broke the trust with our people that is the very foundation of our democracy. It is not only in remembering that shameful past that we can make amends and repair our nation, but it is in remembering that past that we can build a better present and a better future. And without remembering it, we cannot make amends and we cannot go forward. So today, America does remember the hundreds of men used in research without their knowledge and consent. We remember them and their family members, men who were poor and African American, without resources and with few alternatives. They believed they had found hope when they were offered free medical care by the United States Public Health Service. They were betrayed. Medical people are supposed to help when we need care, but even once a cure was discovered, they were denied help, and they were lied to by their government. Our government is supposed to protect the rights of its citizens. Their rights were trampled upon. 40 years, hundreds of men betrayed, along with their wives and children, along with a community in Macon County, Alabama, the city of Tuskegee, the fine university there, and the larger African American community. The United States government did something that was wrong, deeply, profoundly, morally wrong. It was an outrage to our commitment to integrity and equality for all our citizens. To the survivors, to the wives and family members, the children and the grandchildren, I say what you know. No power on earth can give you back the lives lost, the pain suffered, the years of internal torment and anguish. What was done cannot be undone, but we can end the silence. We can stop turning our heads away. We can look at you in the eye and finally say, on behalf of the American people, what the United States government did was shameful, and I am sorry. The American people are sorry for the loss, for the years of hurt. You did nothing wrong, but you were grievously wronged. I apologize, and I am sorry that this apology has been so long in coming. To Macon County, to Tuskegee, to the doctors who have been wrongly associated with the events there, you have our apology as well. To our African American citizens, I am sorry that your federal government orchestrated a study so clearly racist. That can never be allowed to happen again. It is against everything our country stands for, and what we must stand against is what it was. So let us resolve to hold forever in our hearts and minds the memory of a time not long ago in Macon County, Alabama, so that we can always see how adrift we can become when the rights of any citizens are neglected, ignored, and betrayed. And let us resolve here and now to move forward together. The legacy of the study at Tuskegee has reached far and deep in ways that hurt our progress and divide our nation. We cannot be one America when a whole segment of our nation has no trust in America. An apology is the first step, and we take it with a commitment to rebuild that broken trust. We can begin by making sure there is never again another episode like this one. We need to do more to ensure that medical research practices are sound and ethical, and that researchers work more closely with communities. Today, I would like to announce several steps to help us achieve these goals. First, we will help to build that lasting memorial at Tuskegee. The school, founded by Booker T. Washington, distinguished by the renowned scientist George Washington Carver, and so many others who advanced the health and well-being of African Americans and all Americans, is a fitting site. The Department of Health and Human Services will award a planning grant so the school can pursue establishing a Center for Bioethics in Research and Healthcare. The center will serve as a museum of the study and support efforts to address its legacy and strengthen bioethics training. Second, we commit to increase our community involvement so that we may begin restoring lost trust. The study at Tuskegee served to sow distrust of our medical institutions, especially where research is involved. Since the study was halted, abuses have been checked by making informed consent and local review mandatory in federally funded and mandated research. Still, 25 years later, many medical studies have little African American participation, and African American organ donors are few. This impedes efforts to conduct promising research and to provide the best health care to all our people, including African Americans. So today I'm directing the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Donna Shalala, to issue a report in 180 days about how we can best involve communities, especially minority communities, in research and health care. Every American group must be involved in medical research in ways that are positive. We have put the curse behind us. Now we must bring the benefits to all Americans. Third, we commit to strengthen researchers' training in bioethics. We are constantly working on making breakthroughs in protecting the health of our people and in vanquishing diseases. But all our people must be assured that their rights and dignity will be respected as new drugs, treatments, and therapies are tested and used. So I am directing Secretary Shalala to work in partnership with higher education to prepare training materials for medical researchers. They will be available in a year. They will help researchers build on core ethical principles of respect for individuals, justice, and informed consent, and advise them on how to use these principles effectively in diverse populations. Fourth, to increase and broaden our understanding of ethical issues in clinical research, we commit to providing postgraduate fellowships to trained bioethicists, especially among African Americans and other minority groups. HHS will offer these fellowships beginning in September of 1998 to promising students enrolled in bioethics graduate programs. And finally, by executive order, I am also today extending the charter of the National Bioethics Advisory Commission to October of 1999. The need for this commission is clear. We must be able to call on the thoughtful, collective wisdom of experts and community representatives to find ways to further strengthen our protections for subjects in human research. We face a challenge in our time. Science and technology are rapidly changing our lives with the promise of making us much healthier, much more productive, and more prosperous. But with these changes, we must work harder to see that as we advance, we don't leave behind our conscience. No ground is gained, and indeed much is lost, if we lose our moral bearings in the name of progress. The people who ran the study at Tuskegee diminished the stature of man. by abandoning the most basic ethical precepts. They forgot their pledge to heal and repair. They had the power to heal the survivors and all the others, and they did not. Today, all we can do is apologize. But you have the power. For only you, Mr. Shaw, the others who are here, the family members who are with us in Tuskegee, only you have the power to forgive. Your presence here shows us that you have chosen a better path than your government did so long ago. You have not withheld the power to forgive. I hope today and tomorrow every American will remember your lesson and live by it. Thank you, and God bless you.